Duelists, welcome to the Madolche Massacre, the Candyland Crew crushing, Dessert Girl domination, Satan's Sweet Soiree? Not sure why I wrote that one down. Duelists, it is that time of the year. We are all inside, warming up, and hopefully enjoying some tasty, delicious baked goods. So let's take a bite out of Madolche, and as I say that, I think that might be illegal with the art. Never mind. Anyway, Madolche is a series of monsters who kind of do a little bit of everything. Their prime function really is OTKing. Despite the appearance on the cards, they can put up incredibly impressive stats and really just swarm the field and punch in for lethal all in one turn. Let's go over all our Madolche main deck monsters. There aren't that many of them, which allows us to run a bevy of hand traps and other utility cards. But first off, the main, most powerful card in our deck, Petting Cesur. This card can be special summoned if we don't have any monsters in the grave. The other gimmick of Madolches is they don't like to stay in the grave. They're either shuffling back in when they're destroyed. We have ways to bring them back to the hand from the grave, etc. So if we have an empty grave, we can special summon Petting Cesur. And if it's special summoned by this or potentially another function, we can special summon a Madolche monster from our hand or deck, but we'll reduce its level by 1. Now, normally this is going to grab us our Pudding Cess, which is really the only hard brick in the deck. It's a level 5, so it'll get it down to a level 4. So we can make Xyz plays later on, and it also has specific function with one of our Xyz monsters should we use it as material. So generally we're going to be grabbing that Madolche Pudding Cess. Never really want to see this in the hand, never going to be searching for it unless we are getting it off Petting Cesur. And Petting Cesur does have that trigger where if it's destroyed by an opponent's card and sent to the grave, we will shuffle it back into the deck. Next up, we've got Madeline. Madeline will search on normal or flip summon. Never really going to flip summon, but on normal summon, we can add a Madolche monster, and of course it has that shuffle back clause. Angeli has that shuffle back clause, as well as we can tribute it to special summon a Madolche from the deck. A lot of times this is going to grab us a Hoot Cake. Hoot Cake is sort of the odd one out. This one's going to be 3 stars instead of 4. Obviously it's a beast as opposed to our other typings. We have quite diverse typings, but Hoot Cake is kind of the odd one out. You can banish any monster in our graveyard, so this could be a hand trap as well. Helps to make sure that our grave is always clear for our Petting Cesur. And by banishing it, we can special summon a Madolche monster from the deck, except for Hoot Cake. This also will shuffle back in. Generally, off of Hoot Cake, we're going to be special summoning Gelato. We're back to our level 4. Gelato will, once again, shuffle back if it's destroyed by our opponent's card. But when it's special summoned, we can add a Madolche spell trap from our deck to our hand. Now, we only have a few of those, but they're all super crucial to our game plan. Now, the reason why we're generally getting this off of Hoot Cake is because it only triggers when we control a face-up Madolche beast type, which is our Hoot Cake. Also, this card can miss timing, so watch out for that one. That's pretty much all of our Madolche main deck monsters. Obviously, we've got all sorts of hand traps and stuff, as well as all sorts of other good cards. Notably, this deck can use Small World quite well. Basically, any Madolche monster, since they're all Earth, can go through a Madolche, through Maxi to any other Madolche, and we generally only need one Madolche to start any of our combos, assuming no interruption from our opponent. So Small World is really good in this deck. Let's end off with our Madolche spell traps. Our field spell, Chateau, is huge. When it's activated, we can shuffle all of our Madolche monsters in our grave into the deck. This can either reuse X-Rank monsters that have gone to the grave, recycle things back into the deck so that we can special summon from the deck. As you saw, we have a few ways to do that, as well as trigger our other spells right here. In addition, this is going to buff all of our monsters by 500. This really boosts up our OTK potential, as well as if any monster in our grave would be returned to the deck by the effect of a Madolche monster, so notably when they're all destroyed and they want to shuffle back in, you can return it to the hand instead if we have the Chateau out. Salon allows us an additional normal summon, which is great if we don't have a Petting Cesur to special summon. Also, whenever we're going to add back to the hand or shuffle into the deck, normally shuffle into the deck, but add back into the hand if we have Chateau out, we can set a Madolche spell trap directly from our deck. Ticket allows us to search a Madolche anytime one of our Madolches is added to our hand or shuffled into the main deck. Once again, if we have Salon out, we're adding to the hand, otherwise we're shuffling back into the deck. And if we control a Fairy Madolche monster, which Petting Cesur, Pudding Cess, as well as our extra deck monsters are, we can actually special summon the monster from our deck instead. So another great way to just continually swarm the field, make sure that we're shuffling things back in, and then reusing them through all of these. And then finally, our singular Madolche trap. This is our essentially negate. We can negate any face-up card our opponent controls and return a Madolche from either our field or our grave to the hand. Now, returning from the grave to the hand will, of course, trigger our other continuous spells, or we can pull something back up from the field if we want to use it for next turn. In addition, this has a graveyard effect where we can attach a Madolche from our hand, our graveyard, or our deck to any Xyz Madolche that we have. Generally, we're not going to be using this effect. Usually, we've OTK'd by the time this would be relevant. But if we need to reuse some effects, this can come up. All right, let's move on to the extra deck. A lot of these are generic good stuff. As you can see, we've got the Nightmares, Dweller, Bagoosk, Zeus, etc. But we do have Madolches here. We're playing 4 2-ofs. First off, Glass Souffle can detach a Madolche and then target a Madolche and make it unaffected by anything except for its own effects. That can help as a piece of disruption, but also generally we're going to do this just to get a Madolche into the grave. This also triggers if a Madolche card is sent to the grave while this card is on the field, which triggers from its own activation. You can shuffle up to 2 cards from any graveyard into decks. It's a great way to potentially blank opposing effects in the grave, but it also just shuffles things back into our deck to either reuse them and also once again trigger our continuous spells. Madolche Pudding Cess Chocolate a la Mode is going to be our only rank 5. Now we can overlay this onto any of our rank 4s, so that's going to be either Glass Souffle or Tiramisu, who I'll talk about in a second. Once per turn, we can shuffle a Madolche card in our graveyard back into the deck, once again triggering our continuous spells. And while this has Madolche Pudding Cess, yes, this is why we need that Pudding Cess to trigger our Pudding Cess Chocolate a la Mode. Anytime anything is shuffled back into the main deck, which triggers off its own effect, once again, you can detach material and special summon a Madolche monster from the deck in attack position or face down defense position. Face down defense position, notably, you can then flip up your Magiling to trigger your Magiling. Finally, the queen of the deck, Queen Tiramisu. Once per turn, detach a material from this card. Shuffle up to 2 Madolche cards in your graveyard into the deck, and shuffle cards your opponent controls into the deck. This is huge removal, similar to Baxia and something like Sword Soul. We can shuffle 2 cards back in the deck, but we're also getting to shuffle our cards in the graveyard back into the deck, once again, potentially triggering those continuous spells that we've set up. Notably, Tiramisu, not a hard once per turn, so we can make this multiple times and shuffle up to 4 cards into the deck, and that reminds me that Mess and Gelato, also not a hard once per turn, so we can potentially get basically all of our Madolche spell traps out by using this card. Finally, Sistar is our 1 link monster. While this points to a Madolche monster, our spell traps cannot be destroyed by card effects, and neither player can target them with card effects. It's a great way to preserve our few back row as well as our field spell. We're only playing 1 of each, and they're all super crucial to the game plan. And if this card were destroyed, you can shuffle a Madolche monster back from your graveyard into your deck instead, once again triggering our continuous spells. That's pretty much it for the deck. Let's hop into some games. All right, let's start out by showing off what the deck can do going first. We're going to start off with a Pot of Prosperity, banishing a full 6, but none of our Madolches really. Just to see what we can find off the top, potentially bait in an Ash. Now, I remember when I was playing this game, I actually saw a quick flash of them having what is presumably Max C, so I grabbed the Ash Blossom because we are going to be special summoning a ton. With a clear grave, we can special summon the Petting Sessur out. There is the Max C, we have the Ash Blossom for it. Okay, cool, we're each just playing 1 card down. Ooh, I'm fucking sick, duels. Alright. Petting Sessur out. Petting is going to trigger. We're going to get the Pudding from deck. This level is going to be reduced, so we can go 2 4s into the Glass Souffle. We'll trigger Glass Souffle, targeting itself. This is just to get that Petting in the grave. Now we can overlay for the Chocolate a la Mode, which does have the Pudding Cess material. We can shuffle back that Petting, which will trigger the Pudding Cess, allowing us to detach the Glass Souffle to get the Angeli. Angeli, now attributing for the Hoot Cake. This is just to thin our deck a little bit. Hoot Cake will banish that Glass Souffle, getting us a Mess and Gelato, which will trigger and get us the Chateau. Now, we're going to go Chateau. It's going to shuffle back that Angeli into the grave. Now we can detach the Pudding Cess and special summon a second Mess and Gelato, getting us a Madolche Salon. We'll go Salon, go into a second Glass Souffle. Now we're boosted up, got that big butt with 3k. We can go into a Sistart. Glass Souffle will trigger. Chateau will add back the Pudding Cess and the Hoot Cake to hand as we attempt to shuffle back with the Glass Souffle. Salon will trigger, allowing us to set the Promenade. We can set a Forbidden Droplet, and now we are good to go. Our spells cannot be destroyed. We have a Negate. We have Quick Effect interaction with the Glass Souffle, as well as, of course, the Droplet. And a Veiler in hand. We're going to negate that Aluber. No branded fusion for you. But this is branded Despia. I'm sure they're going to have more plays. Oh, it's branded Eldlich. Okay, so Eldlich sends Solemn Strike. We can actually trigger the Glass Souffle to make sure that it is unaffected by card effects other than its own by detaching a material. All right, so we've now negated the Eldlich effect, since a card was sent by Glass Soufflé, we can trigger and shuffle up to 2. We'll shuffle back our Pudding Cess Chocolate a la Mode, as well as the Mess and Gelato. Salon will trigger as well, since we added back to hand, which will set a ticket. Now our opponent's going to go for the Fusion Destiny, and we can Promenade by returning our Fresh Start to the hand. Unfortunately, we didn't have any more Madolches in the grave to return, because we had just triggered our Glass Soufflé. But with that, our opponent has no more plays. We could easily OTK from there, and they are going to scoop it up. All right, now let's show you what we can do on turn 2. Now, I don't know what Kaiba Boy was doing, but he thoughtfully passed the turn right through to us. So this is just going to show off the combo, and we draw Angeli for turn. Now, this deck can OTK with a singular Angeli, assuming no disruption. But we're going to go Petting Cessor, special summon the Pudding Cess, go into the Glass Soufflé. This is going to be very similar to our setup for the first turn, except we're just going to extend out and actually go for the OTK. So here is the Pudding Cess Chocolate a la Mode. Chocolate a la Mode will shuffle back the Petting Cessor. Triggering, we're going to get ourselves a Hoot Cake. Hoot Cake will banish the Glass Soufflé and get us the Mess and Gelato. Mess and Gelato will get us the Field Spell, the Chateau. Notice I still have all of these other Madolches in hand, as well as a Small World, and I have not used my normal summon. There is the normal summon of the Angeli to get a Mess and Gelato. Mess and Gelato will add us a Promenade. We'll set the Promenade, and just in case, and we have easily lethal here with the boost from the Chateau. Easy peasy. All right, now I know that last one was a little underwhelming. You can't expect your opponent to just nicely pass the turn through for you and have no interaction, but this time let's show exactly what we mean by a proper OTK. Now our opponent's going to make it a little bit difficult for us. Normally we want to do this turn 2, but we have the out in hand. We're going to draw Effect Veiler for turn, then we're going to set 3, notably setting the Imperm in the Kaiser Coliseum column so that we can negate its effects when we trigger it next turn. They're going to shuffle back their Time Lord and then special summon out the Time Maiden. I'm going to Effect Veiler that. I don't want them to have another Time Lord. Also, this keeps the monster on field so that we can Infinite Impermanence it and get that Kaiser Coliseum negated. All right, so here is the Imperm. And like I said, we can OTK just with a singular Angeli, assuming no disruption, but we'll see what we can do here. Angeli into Petting Cessor. This is basically how we're going to start all of our combos. Angeli into Petting Cessor, Magdalene Search Petting Cessor, etc. Petting Cessor just hard special summon. We've got the Glass Soufflé. Pudding Cess is now going to trigger and shuffle back. That's going to allow us to special summon. We're going to grab the Hoot Cake. Hoot Cake can banish the Glass Soufflé now so that we can get ourselves the Mess and Gelato, which will get us a spell. We already have the Chateau, so we'll grab the ticket. I'm going to activate the ticket first here so that when I activate that Chateau to shuffle back in all of our Madolches, that will trigger the ticket. So you got to make sure you're sequencing those things properly, or at least being cognizant of how you're sequencing those things. Chocolate mode will once again trigger because that is not a hard once per turn. We'll go Mess and Gelato. Mess and Gelato will then get us nothing because it missed the timing, of course. We can go 2/4s into Tiramisu. Tiramisu's going to shuffle back both their monster and their spell, and we easily had lethal there, but we could have even kept going if we needed to attack over some monsters or get through some additional disruption. All right, back on the play. Let's see what we can do. We've got our Petting Cessor already in hand, so we can special summon that on an empty grave and get ourselves the Pudding Cess. These two are going to go into the Glass Soufflé, of course. We have a lot of ways to get to our combo, but generally, once we get there, the combo is pretty straightforward. We already have the Salon, so we're going to set that now so that will trigger when we start shuffling things back in. Salon will trigger, as well as Pudding Cess, detach the Glass Soufflé. We'll get our Hoot Cake, as well as we'll just set that Chateau right from the deck, and we'll be a little bit more selective on when we want to trigger that, so to shuffle in all of our Madolche monsters in grave, which notably right now we don't have any. We'll get an additional normal summon off of the Salon and go for the Magdalene. That's going to add us an Angeli. There's our regular normal summon for turn. Here's Glass Soufflé. Angeli will tribute and get us a Mess and Gelato. Mess and Gelato will trigger. We'll add the Promenade. Now we have all 4 of our Madolche spells. We'll set that. We can go into a fresh Sistart. It's going to protect all our spell and traps. Now we can fire the Chateau and shuffle back all 4 of our monsters, triggering our ticket as well as we've already triggered the Salon this turn, but we can go for the Petting Sessor, and that's a great thing to return off of our Promenade. Set the Droplet and carry on. Okay, we're playing against Pendulum. They're going to go Servant into... now, I don't really know what exactly they're playing yet, so I'm going to now negate this. I don't want them to search for the field spell. Turns out it is going to be Endymion, so not the worst, but you never know. These field spells out here are going crazy. Salon will trigger, since we return Petting Sessor to hand, as well as Ticket. Get ourselves an Angeli. It's just another body out there. We can send it off Droplet if we need to as well. They're going to scale up, remove some spell counters. Here comes Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic. Something that I would have liked to Forbidden Droplet, but we actually cannot target it while it has a spell counter. I go for the Effect Veiler, assuming I can hit the Endymion, but I go for the Servant instead. They're going to add, get some more spell counters. Now they've got the Secret Village of Spellcasters. Now, little do they know, we have a Spellcaster. Mageline is a Spellcaster. We have Fairies, we have Spellcasters, we have Warriors, we have Beasts. So we just need to get to Mageline, and then we can start activating Droplet, Ticket, Salon, etc. Now, I was hoping to get a little cute there, but I think I accidentally clicked through my option to protect this Sistar. That being said, though, we are going to get to return all these cards to hand. The Chateau is not a once per turn. It's just basically a replacement effect. Alright, so like I said, we've got the Mageline. So we just need to get the Mageline out before we can start activating. Oh, we also drew Mageline for turn. Nice. Alright, so detach from Messenger Lotto. Chateau, we're going to shuffle back the Effect Veiler to hand, as well as the Message Lotto. Ticket and Salon will trigger. They're going to go for the negate on the Mighty Master of Magic. There's too many damn words. I did not read that part of the card. It's fine. They're going to return that to hand. That's one less thing we have to get over. Salon will go to the grave, but we will still get the ticket and get ourselves an Angeli. And like I said, remember, we can OTK with a single Angeli. Let's get Madolche Mageline on the field and adding a Hoot Cake. Now we can go Forbidden Droplet and negate the rest of those Endymions, as well as have their attack. Our opponent sees the writing on the wall and they concede. We had basically all the tools at our disposal. We just needed to negate those so that they stopped interfering with our spells, because that is notably a once per chain, not a once per turn. And that is Madolche. I'm actually a huge fan of this deck. I love this deck. I love that basically all of our cards are starters. I love the fact that since we're running such a compact Madolche package in the main deck, only one of all the spells, and we're not even maxing out on all of our main deck monsters, we get to run all the good stuff, right? Maxis, called bys, Forbidden Droplets, Imperms, all that sort of stuff. We can, and the fact that since we're running all those things and we have such OTK potential, this is an okay going second deck. You could even put in things like more Debirus, some Lightning Storms as well. I've got the Duster in there if you really wanted to maximize your going second potential. But I think this deck is super resilient. I love the fact that it can kill so quickly. I love that it's so streamlined, and I think it's already doing well in the current Master Duel meta. I think it's only going to get better as we move closer and closer to what is currently happening in the TCG, where it's doing fairly well there. Jules, out.